Welcome to the Growth Through Grief podcast, where we interview individuals just like you who are dealing with their own journey from loss to growth, along with mental health experts, growth guides, all with the purpose of helping you better heal your mind, body, and spirit, find your new purpose from the loss and the tragedy that you have experienced. Hi, I'm Tom Pacello, known as the ROI Guy. I'm your host. I'm a growth evangelist, as well as a fellow widower, having lost my beautiful bride of 19 years, Judy, almost 5 years ago to the day. So today I've got a couple of guests. This is a rarity where we have more than one guest, but we're welcoming back two amazing guests to talk about spirits, ghosts, and visitations. Oh my. We welcome back first Helen Keeling-Neal. She's a licensed mental health counselor, licensed marriage and family therapist, nationally certified counselor, and she's got a private practice in my hometown here of Winter Park, Florida. And Helen is on the board with us here at Growth Through Grief to help guide our practice on all things.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back, Tom.
Welcome back, Helen. Awesome. And Helen as well has experienced grief and loss herself. She is a widow. Her husband passed away when her children were really young, 4 and 6 years old. So she knows grief and loss well. And that helps a lot in her understanding some of what we go through here as widowers. And we welcome back Brian Rossi. He's the CEO and founder of Instigate. They're an entrepreneurial success engine and consultancy. And he's author of the book, Lack or Success. I'm holding it up here. You can see it there. And he lost his life partner of over 14 years, Imelda. And she was his exotic inspiration, his turnaround artist, his mystic, his spiritual guide, his life Sherpa. And he lost her in 2017. And I'm sorry about that, Brian.
Thanks, Tom.
And welcome both of you. So we're here to talk about an interesting topic. And this one is interesting to me because I'm an engineer, I'm a systems thinker, problem, cause, solution. I mean, the idea of spirits, ghosts, visitations, it's definitely not something that I would have readily embraced before some of my own experiences in this area after my Judy passed away. So first, I want to get an indication. Talk about your belief in spirits, ghosts, and visitations. Brian, I'll start with you.
With Imelda, and people don't know about Imelda, but Imelda was a pretty spiritually gifted woman that could see, and she was a medium. She was a 7-degree empath. So she was very galactic, and that's what she was. That's what she did on a daily basis. So I was indoctrinated into or exposed to it back in the early 2004-ish range, where that world was now being a part of my daily experience through conversations and so forth. So as I bring this perspective, it's not that I just had a lot of years of being involved and seeing a lot of crazy, fun, unique things that have happened over the years just by who I was associated with and who my significant other was, and so forth. So my belief is I definitely believe in spirits. I know they're around. I have numerous things that we hopefully will talk about today on this podcast and so forth. So I'm definitely a believer.
And Helen, how about you? Did you come to this willingly? Did you come to this via a guide that might have shown you, or was it just experience of seeing the supernatural firsthand that kind of got you believing in spirits, ghosts, and visitations?
So I'm someone who likes to keep an open mind. So I don't want to close the door to anything because I think that there's so much more that we don't know. And it's been a process for me, an evolution into what I believe or what I know based around what I've experienced. But yes, I'm the same as Brian. I believe in spirits. I believe in messages that come through. I've experienced many of them myself. But I also support anybody else's right to not believe and to not think the same way that I do. I think that for me, it's been an important part of my grief journey, and I've found it very reassuring at times. So, yeah, I'm a believer for sure.
All right. So I was not a believer. I'm definitely the skeptic of the group. I did not have someone before this who was as spiritual, Brian, as you had. A couple of things happened to me that kind of convinced me. So I'm going to share a couple of those, and then I want to go around, and I'll go, Helen, to you next, and then Brian, to maybe share a couple of experiences. There was one where, and I know this has happened to a lot of widowers, where they wake up at the time of death. Judy passed away in the house, and almost every day, and even sometimes to this day, I will wake up at just about the time of her death. The dog is stirring around, hearing something, maybe there's some subconscious reason for it with me, but often, and especially in the beginning, I would wake up all the time experiencing that. So, and then for me as well, some other things happened that were pretty darn convincing. We had these ceramic hearts that we had collected from our travels. And one by one, these hearts were well attached to the wall. And before this, and ever since, there has never been a piece of artwork that has fallen off the wall. But one by one, maybe a month after her death to maybe 2 months after her death, during that kind of month time period, each one of the hearts, 3, fell off the wall and broke, in my mind, representing one for each of the remaining, myself and my 2 daughters. And they didn't just kind of fall off and just break a little bit. Each one fell off and were just shattered. I mean, irreparable, dozens of pieces. One just completely shattered.
3 different days?
And so I thought that was really representative.
3 different days?
What's that? 3 different days. This was over the course of about a month. And it wasn't as a result of a door closing, or, sometimes you can close a door hard and it'll shake the wall and something will fall off. It had nothing to do with any of that. They just kind of randomly kind of flew off the wall.
Now, let me ask you this question.
Crashed down.
Here's another question. Is when the first one happened, what did you think? Did you say, "Hey, Judy, what's up?" Or did you even go there? That's my question. Did you even go there and acknowledge, "Hey, Judy, what's going on? Are you here?" Or one of those? I'm just curious.
Yeah, it's a great question. I definitely thought that, again, the engineering logical brain is pretty strong in me, Brian. So I went there right away and then kind of dismissed it. I rationalized it away until the second.
Oh, you didn't get that. You didn't get the message.
And then certainly
okay.
Yeah, I didn't get the message. I'm Steve-Odd. Definitely an Italian term for being a little thick-headed sometimes about stuff too. So that doesn't help, Brian. I don't know if you ever heard that term before, but yeah, it took those 3 times for me really to be convinced. And then knowing that, and there was one other heart that never did break. And there was only one that was left remaining. And, I can suppose some of the symbology behind that, but I thought it was really curious.
Well, what is your symbology behind it, Tom?
Probably
what do you extract from that one that's left?
Yeah, that her heart and her love still goes on, I think. So that's kind of my interpretation of it. And the 3 of us, our hearts are broken, and she's in a better place in love and surrounded with love as being the fabric, and that our hearts are left behind and are broken.
I would say my interpretation
where
would
it was.
She would have broke the 4th if you didn't get the first 3.
Yeah.
So, that's my interpretation of the 4th one. Is it took 3 to get, I believe, like one of those. They get the message across.
Get the message across and get it through. Yeah. Well, there was one other incident that was really scary in a way. And about the time of her passing at night, one evening, the alarm system didn't go off in the house because I rarely had it on at the time. But guys, it shrieked. I mean, it screamed. And it's a sound that I didn't even know how the alarm system even made that sound. It wasn't designed into the system, right? But it literally was the alarm system screaming at me. And I've recorded it. I won't play it because it is still, to this day, I've listened to it every once in a long time, but it still gives me shivers and has me react and trigger because it is so frightfully scary, the sound that was coming out of the alarm system.
Interesting.
Speaker. Now, don't interpret that.
I won't.
So I want to go on and find out what
that's. I'll hold that one back. Okay.
I've got my ideas there too and stuff, but I want to hear some of the experience that you guys have. And that's true. And I'll share a couple of others that have occurred as well. So, Helen, I'll go to you first. What are some of the supernatural things?
So many to choose from. I'll tell you, I think probably one of the most profoundly helpful experiences I had. I had a friend who asked me, oh, here comes the yard guy. I had a friend who asked me a few weeks after David had died whether I would be interested to go and see a medium with her. And it actually turned out to be someone who I'd seen a couple of years previously, who'd predicted children.
Okay.
Yeah. Are we okay with the yard noise, or is it all right?
Yeah,
you can still hear me. So we went to see the medium, and I was really deeply in grief. It was super new, and the medium's name is Elizabeth Palin, and she's really terrific, and she's also English, that was good. I enjoyed that. She's from Liverpool, but she's in the States. So she didn't have any information about me other than my first name. And right away, she tuned in to David, immediately right away. And so she was saying things like, he says to tell you he's got a new car. And we'd had an argument about him leasing a car and putting the down payment on a credit card. So I knew it felt like he was messing with me with his little sense of humor. She talked about how he couldn't believe how many people came to see him when he was in the hospital, that he really loved the video. I had him video put together for the service. And he said he's really funny. He keeps doing this thing. And this is what we would call the bear dance. He would do this little dance called the bear dance. So when we got to the bear dance, the other couple, I could sort of be like, sure. Yeah, sure. Generalizing. The bear dance, I was like, okay, this is going really well. But then she said the one thing that really just blew my mind, and I just broke down sobbing. And I'll give you the setup. After David passed away in Vitas Hospital, and they come in and they put the blanket over and they comb their hair, and I was in there sitting with him in the room by myself, and they combed his hair into this geeky style. So I leaned over and I fixed the hair on his body. I fixed it into his style. So here we are. I'm with Elizabeth Palin, the medium, and she says, and he says to tell you, you fixed his hair. And I just sobbed, and I sobbed with like the gratitude for that connection, the gratitude knowing that he was okay. It was just a really, really profound and beautiful moment for me. So that was, that is one of the most significant ones.
Yeah, I don't know how anyone else, I know I got chills when you said that, and how she could have known that. There's absolutely no way the bear dance and the hair. Definitely not. Yeah. I completely agree with you. Yeah, exactly. Now, I have not visited a medium. Brian, I think you have as well. So, but tell us a couple of your stories that Imelda is still there.
Well, it's interesting that Elizabeth is from, I assume, English and British. So she might have been trained in the British style of mediumship. And I would say I only know of that because one of the ladies that Imelda used to train under was a British style medium. And that style, they have to confirm without a shadow of a doubt that what they're telling the other person is who it is before they move anywhere forward. So most likely she was confirming, Helen, to make sure that you're communicating with exactly who you want to communicate and there's no discrepancy. that's the style that I did when Imelda passed away, because I wanted to make sure that who I was talking to was Imelda. Okay. And so, because I wanted very specific questions answered, because, like I said, I was aware of mediumship. I was aware of these things for a decade plus going into this. And so my first question to Imelda was, hey, why now, man? Like, why'd you leave? And she's like, hey, and I think this goes back to, and goes back to the overarching topic of grief, is you got to understand that, when we come here, we come usually with a partner that we're supposed to kind of be with during this lifetime. And so Imelda reminded me that this was part of our journey of, hey, come into this lifetime, start something, and then you need to learn, Brian, how to live without me being the spiritual crutch on the other side. And I get it. It was a very rough thing to hear from someone else. And obviously you're going through a grieving process and so forth. But one of the main stories that I want to talk about was, it was about 3 weeks after Imelda passed away. And I was living in this apartment with my 2 cats, and I wasn't leaving the house. But came time to go get some groceries, and it started to rain, Thomas and Helen. And so I left and I went to the grocery store, and I came back, and it just stopped raining. And so I lived in this apartment complex that was in the back alley. So think of like a small 8-unit building, and the back corner is where my unit was. So there's no one walking past this. There's no one walking in the rain. There's no one walking in this back unit. And if it was, there was no other cars, in the parking lot. It was just me, because I was the only one there during the day, because I ran my own business, right? So as I came back, and I'm going to show on the screen, I came back, and on the back porch, just stopped raining, like literally pulling in. And all of a sudden, I'm not sure if you can see this, but we'll see if I can see this. But I'm going to show a picture I took on the railing. And for those that cannot see, it says, I was here in pink chalk on the railing. I can only attribute that to Imelda, okay? Because that's the only person that I could think of that could actually pull that off, okay? Just to let you know, 3 weeks after she passed away. Now, that always gets me as the start here. But there was one more. There's one more that I like to bring up. Is there was, Imelda, like I said, she had certain quirks and things that, and I think we all do in relationships. And one was this spiritual little trinket of an angel, a spiritual guide that she liked when she was not feeling very well. She would put in her pocket. She would kind of hold on to it. I have a picture of it on my social media Facebook page, and you could see the spiritual, and it's an angel with 2 wings. Well, about a couple weeks before her passing, one of the wings broke. Like one of the wings broke off of this little spiritual angel. And she's like, look for it. And I looked for it,
Mm-hmm.
looked for it everywhere. Then she passed away. And then, when someone passes away, people come and they kind of help you clean and the house. And so fast forward another month. Okay. So a lot of people have come through, a lot of people have cleaned, could not find it. And then one evening I was sleeping, and, I got woken up during the night. I don't know what startled me, but something startled me. I woke up, I went to the bathroom, I came back, I turned on the light, and at the bottom of this bed, which is right in front of my face, which was not there, was the wing that completes the part of the angel. So immediately I'm like, got it.
Mm-hmm.
I know what to do now. Glue the wing back onto the angel and say, hey, but that was Imelda's letting you know that I'm around. I'm going to be around, and you probably asked for it, Brian. And that's true. So I did say, hey, show me a sign. I'm always keep showing me a sign that you're around. And she definitely delivered twice on those 2 stories. So.
That's awesome. And Brian, when you went to the medium, I just want to clarify that a little bit for those who hadn't heard the story from our first conversation. the medium basically told you that, look, Imelda wants you to know that you were relying on her as the crutch.
That
Right?
came,
So
yeah,
that
that came from
the
the medium that
to
was
say
relaying
that
it from Imelda.
was
Is, you know, in life, you know, especially
Yeah.
she was a very gifted, you know, reader, you know, and some people are like that. Some people, that's what they put on this planet to do, is to be able to connect. And just like, you know, I like to think in business and finance, it's something that I was put on this earth to do. And Thomas, you know, being an entrepreneur, and Helen doing the psychological and things with your clients as well. You know, like, we're all put here to be professionals. She was put here to be a connector of spiritual realms and be able to read and do that. That was part of her existence, you know? And so when she relays the message, I take serious heed to it, just because that's her profession. And especially someone that I know, you know, and I even write about. So she was just mentioning, hey, you know, when you come in life and you get around someone that's very connected, you know, we all come here to learn on our own spiritual journey. And I was relying on her expertise, because I would get a reading every day. I would get like, hey, what should we do today in this thing? You know, I have this conversation with this guy or this gal, you know, like, what should we do? And she would do a reading and she would give me her insights. But at some point, you got to do that yourself. Like, you have to grow into this realm. And I think that's what part of this topic is today, is this shine a light through the power of our stories, our collective stories, to say, hey, there's more to this than meets the eye, you know, of just physical flesh and blood in this lifetime. We're here to do more and learn more. And part of this is to hopefully maybe become the beginning or remind you of that.
I love that part too, Brian, because I think as men, you know, we tend to focus on business a lot and our professional careers. And a lot of times we rely very much on our wives to fill in all the other blanks in our lives. And there's a lot after that, right? And I was doing that same thing. And I think that Judy has shown me many times that I needed to be the one that was providing service to others like she did. And I relied on her to do that. I relied on her to be the one serving the community, serving at school, serving breast cancer survivors. And because I was relying on that much as you did, Brian, it was a crutch essentially. And I think that part of the messaging I got loud and clear from her over the time. Okay, it took me longer than it takes you, Brian, because I'm thick-headed, but I eventually got it to where it's like, look, you need to not be so hyper-focused on business and start to give back a lot more and start to serve more and take my place in a lot of instances where she would have done that. Now I need to be doing that. And I need to be setting that example for our girls.
It's that lesson in learning to trust our own intuition and to develop our own intuition and the gifts that come from loss, which is sort of an opening up of the cycle.
Helen, why do you think? Yeah, Helen, why do you think that that we do get messages back, that we still stay connected? Do you think it's so that they can help guide us, keep us out of trouble, the bad directions, guide us toward the good directions? I definitely feel like I'm nudged a lot of times, and like I said, sometimes I have trouble listening, but I do feel like there's positive and negative nudges that are being done. The screaming was definitely a nudge that I was going in a perhaps wrong direction. The hearts even could have been that interpreted that way. And then there have been such beautiful positive directions that I've gotten as well.
I think, again, this is an evolution in connection, because initially it's all about the loss and losing the person and wanting to stay connected. And then we can grow into seeing and hearing the messages that are prompting us to have a look over here, have a look over there, don't go over here. And I think it happens not just for us as adults, but I know my children have had experiences when they were very little. They had experiences, and my eldest is quite in tune, quite psychic, and my youngest is in denial of her own. So, so sorry, Sarah, if you're listening to this, but it's true. But those nudges Kat had one. Kat is now 19, but when she was 7, she was doing some writing. She's a very bright kid, and she was writing about an experience, and she wanted me to type it for her. And I went on and looked it up today. This is a blog that she had when she was just a young kid, and she was 6 when David died. And I actually wrote it down because I thought, as I was preparing for this, it would be interesting to read what she'd written. And what she wrote was that she was in bed one night and she saw her daddy, and he whispered in her ear, "Think positive, have fun, and do your best, and you'll do great." So this was an experience that she had as a 7-year-old.
So that was at 6, right? That was 6.
She lost him at 7. She had this experience. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, very profound experience. Now, backing up even before that, because Sarah, my youngest, was 4 and 6 when they died. And there was this moment when I was trying to put into words the fact that David was going to die. And, so I told little 4-year-old Sarah, I said, "So Daddy is going to go to heaven. He's going to be an angel." And she said, "No, he's not. He's standing right next to you." Well, he wasn't. We were at home. He was in bed at hospice. But that's what she said to me. So, that connection is there through the whole process. And then it changes. Now my connection with David, there's been so many other events and messages and experiences when I've seen him. But now I am able to he's on my angel team, right? He's part of my team. So when I meditate, I can access my team. I can access him, and I can check in and be like, "Hey, should I date this guy?" And he can be pretty clear about that.
I bet he can. It's interesting, Helen, and you bring up a really good point, and I just want to make it be known. You said learning to connect to your intuition, and I firmly believe that's part of the byproduct of losing someone is the wake-up call. Hey, it's time to start honing in this craft. And it's obviously, and just for everyone out there, it's all going to be a different portion of an intuition. What Helen might be saying, "Hey, I meditate and I have my team." For you might get your information just by a gut understanding or just an inner knowing. So just know it's everyone's intuition's a little bit different on how it showcases to you, how it is. It's not that you have to hear it or see it, or sometimes you can just know it. And so honing that craft, and it's a very important. I state that because for years I would try to say, "Hey, I don't think I can do it like Amelda. Like I can't just she sees a symbol and gets all this information from a symbol. I'm like, no, that's not me. Like that is not me. Like I get like an inner knowing, or I get a gut feeling, and I'm like, ooh, maybe I should not go right and I should go left on that gut feeling. And then that I've learned over the years to know this means go left, okay, or this means go right, and that's how I connect to intuition. But everyone's going to learn a little bit differently. I just wanted to point that out.
I love that.
Yeah, and you don't have to be a 7th degree to still get value and benefit from starting to connect with this other dimension or this intuition, as you're talking about, Brian. And I do think that, Helen, your meditation is an important element for a lot of people to connect to it. I do believe that in the world that we live in, where whenever we have quiet time, we pick up our phone and we always have to be busy, that it gets really hard to connect unless you do create that quiet time. For me, it happens to be with devotionals. It's definitely with yoga and meditation, or at the gym when I get into a flow on certain exercises, or even with music. So there's a number of different ways I think that different people can connect. But regardless, there has to be a quieting of the noise around you and some of these issues that we're faced with in order to connect. Any advice there, Brian? I'll throw it to you first. How do you connect with it?
I like to connect in the morning and the evening before I go to bed. I like set times. Sometimes they're guided. Sometimes they're unguided meditations. Sometimes it's just sitting in solitude and just thinking and connect, just thinking and not trying to think of anything. Now for me personally, I wrote about it in the book, but that, when I first started, it was like, hey, can I just sit here for 5-10 minutes and not try to think about anything? And it took about 21, 28 days, about 30 days to learn and retrain my brain to not think. That, for me, was my first indication of how to get into a meditative state, to try to connect with just being silenced, just silence in general.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, when I say not think, of course, you're going to get random thoughts, but I'm just saying to learn the art of not constantly thinking. Because, I know for me,
mm-hmm.
in a world of stimulation, you just look on any social media thread or any app, it's designed to make you stop what you're doing and just turn that off and just try not to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
That was the toughest part for me when I first made my first step into trying to meditate or reconnect to my own intuition.
Yeah, for me, I literally, Brian, have to exhaust myself. And yoga is meant to do that, right? All of the yoga practice is set to get you to what? Savasana, right? Where you're laying there peace and quiet. But everything works up to that point to kind of get you in a state where you can let your mind free of thoughts and issues. Helen, how do you do your quiet connecting with your angel team meditation or get those connections?
To get here. Right. When I work with my clients on mindfulness or meditation, I tell them 3 minutes, just 3 minutes sitting in quiet, and that's it. And to not judge any thoughts or racing thoughts, because especially when you've had loss, what quiet brings feelings, and that's painful. It's difficult, but underneath those feelings, after they've been released, is a different kind of quiet, and it's more of a peace. And that's an important part of knowing. You don't have to be 30 minutes sitting with no thoughts. In fact, I rarely am completely thought free. I usually have this process where I call it intuitive treatment planning. Like all my clients fly through my head, and then I have all these intuitions about where I need to go next in their cases and things like this. And then I'll have a moment where I'm like, oh, wait a second, I'm really sad and I feel frustrated and I have to process this emotionally over there. And then maybe after that, I can put in a request to go deeper. And
well, you could tell Helen's done some work here. Okay. Like this is real. Like this is part of, it's evident.
Yeah, she's much more of a black belt than either of us will be.
It makes me think of that because we are all in our own places, right? We're all black belts because we're our own black belts, right? It's not, this is, we're tangential. It's not like a path where we're all like racing towards enlightenment. It's not like that, because if that was it, then that's not enlightenment. If it's a race to enlightenment, that's not enlightenment by the very nature of that statement. But it makes me think of in Harry Potter, thestrals, the horses that only someone who's witnessed a death can see. I feel like because of the losses we've experienced, it opens us up to an ability to go to an intuitive state more quickly than somebody who hasn't maybe experienced that kind of loss. It's like it's a psychic opening in some ways. That's just my theory on it. So I always think of the thestrals, and
it's a very interesting theory. It's a very interesting theory. I would consider it. I can see that as being the starting point, Helen.
Yes.
That gets you starting in that direction. But I don't know if that's. I would say for anyone that experienced loss, it doesn't have to be just your significant other. It can be a mom or dad or a grandma or grandpa or even a close friend or pet, even a pet. Correct. Is just the starting point of this journey of just being more present to what's possible of reconnecting to your intuition. That's what I believe. It's just it just gets your attention. Says, "Woo, I got to be here now," and now something's got to change, and it's got to change rapidly because what used to happen is not going to happen because that person or item or pet is not here, and things have changed. So
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah. And Helen, I agree that you don't need to have that loss to kind of see it. I think there's, but it does give you that catalyst for change. There are many, though, grieving widowers who aren't changing. They are a little bit stuck. And any advice there, Helen, for them? And then Brian, over to you on that, because I know there are a lot who, and we all go through our separate timelines and our own journey, but, they will self-admit, look, I'm, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years into it, and I'm no closer to kind of making the progress I thought I would have made in this time frame. And I'm 4 years in or 3 years in.
But I tend to view the word stuck as sometimes a way to judge oneself or others. I like to think more pause. I do this because it's like dog pause, pause. Sometimes there's a pause because there's more information that needs to be gathered, a deeper insight to be had before moving on to the next stage. I talk about clients about how, we want healing or journeys to be like this, that growth trajectory, but that's not how it goes. Often healing is a circle back and then an inch forward and then a circle back and an inch forward as we learn and grow. But many times it goes like this. I mean, my personal journey has been like WTF a lot of the time. And then we can spiral forward a bit, and then it's going to be like this for a little bit, and then we'll spiral forward. So thinking in terms of pause, because there's more to be learned before that next piece is assimilated. Sometimes we have to sit in the pain to release it.
Now,
I love that. Brian, anything to add on to that?
That's the interpretation that Helen presents there. It's very similar to the old success, diagram that you see. Success looks like a squiggly line, and it's never linear, like Helen was describing in her WTF scenario. But I would consider it like the way I envision it is when you go through it, it's more like a tornado and you're kind of going upward. It looks like the same scene, but it's not the same because you're not the same. It's different. It's a different time. And it's just to remind you that this is a similar time and something probably needs to be rearranged, or this is a different time. And you learn through that whole circumstance. So I like to envision it kind of like a tornado, and it just looks the same, but it's not. And there's parts in the journey. And I would suggest to people that are really judgmental about, I should be further along. There is no handbook. There is no like you're 5'7" and a quarter and you need to be 175 pounds, or, when you lose someone you love, no one says 2.5 years, you're supposed to be here on the journey, or 4.7 years, you're supposed to be here on the journey. There's no rule handbook. So when people say they're judging where they be, you're just being really harsh on yourself. Because I'm pretty sure everyone on this call still thinks about their significant other almost every day, or thinks about someone they love that passed away almost every day. Like I think about grandpa, I think about grandma, I think about Amel. Like there's certain people that are just that it's going to remind you as you go throughout your day. And those are the little gems that I would say is a reminder when you think of grandma, or you think of your wife, or you think of your husband, right, that you've lost, or that pet, is just a reminder of whatever you're thinking about, it's probably them. And it's probably a little lesson or something like, hey, don't be so harsh, kind of enjoy the ride. Like we all come here to kind of be a part of this thing. And so that's my best advice on how to deal with it, is to just there's no handbook. There's no handbook. There's no timeline. Yeah.
And don't beat yourself up over it, or have that kind of rigid timeline that it just may take you more time. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. Let's get back to the spirit topic a little bit. I know that several widower brothers have talked about dreams and the dreams they've had. And in particular, many have had dreams and they're beautiful dreams, where wife is not scarred from the surgeries, or the hair is restored from the chemo, or whatever it may be, that they're restored in the dream, and almost coming back to say, hey, everything is all right, and I'm as beautiful as you remember me. Brian, talk about that a little bit. Have you had any dream experiences like that of Imelda?
I'm not a big dreamer. I for years, it'd be very difficult for me to remember a dream. So me particularly, I have to wake up. I set my alarms. If you looked at my alarm on my phone, I wake up at 4:44, 5:55, 6:55, 7:55, 8:55, 9:55, or 10:55. So I specifically try to induce getting up early, possibly going back to sleep, because that dream state for me is when I actually can remember a dream. So I'm a little quirky like that, but that's how I do it. But on the dreams that I do remember about Imelda, it's usually fleeting. It's usually that she always looks good, but there's usually a point where she's just trying to give me a nugget of information, or just, hey, just spend some time, and I get a little glimpse of it. But I'm a firm believer in dreams. I'm a firm believer that we get messages in our dreams, and there's been many occasions, not from Imelda, but just in dreams in general, to get that intuitive hit or reconnect to your intuition through the dream state. Many times I can think of over the years of good business ideas or things or people I should be hanging around with or I shouldn't be hanging around with, and things like that.
Completely agree. Helen?
Brian, I'm like you. I don't dream, or at least I don't remember my dreams. I've never had a dream about David. If I have, it's because I haven't recalled it, because that's just the way I am. I just don't. But I've had many times when I've seen him. So when I, about.
Like you can see him, like you see him, like in the, like, okay.
Yeah. It doesn't happen anymore, but in the first around 5 years, I would see him. And it started about 7 months after he died. And then I would see him come down the stairs every night. I'd have the girls, they'd be asleep, stories done, everything. And I'd be sitting on the couch by myself, and I would see him come down the stairs every night and then just sort of dissipate at the bottom of the stairs, like he just read their stories to him. And then after a year, a little over a year, we moved back into a house that we also owned that was much smaller. I had to downsize. When we went into this house where he and I had lived before, right, I couldn't feel him and then didn't see him in the same way that I did at our house we're at when he was alive. And so I was really gutted. I was really upset about that, because I'd been used to sort of seeing his presence, feeling his presence in that way. So I asked him to come, and literally the next night I would see him coming out of the bedroom and going to get ice cream from the freezer. Each time it's always the same thing. So probably, Brian, you might know a little bit about what that might be as far as having Imelda. She probably taught you quite a lot about those kind of like lingering presence, or I don't know what you would even call it, but.
Oh, I mean, obviously he was there, if you see him, like he's there, and that's what's cool about it,
Yeah.
And it kind of reminded me of one other thing. When I go to bed, there's a light next to the bed, and every night there'd be like a ping, like ding. And it was usually her, like, just letting you know, like, and I'm like, I gotten so used to it that you're like, hey, Melda, how you doing? Is everything good? Yep. Had another great day. Killed it today. Can I go to bed now? Like literally like one of those. But she lets you know when she's around. And that's what David was letting you know. He was letting you know he's around. They're always around. Yep.
Tuned into it, right?
Yeah, just be okay with it. I mean, it's cool. It's cool. It's the next best rendition than them being here physically. But is to be connected, energetically, and my personal viewpoint is like the second best thing that could happen, in this situation.
Yep.
Helen, what's the one thing you'd like to leave our growth warriors with today, when regard to spirits, ghosts, and visitations?
The one thing. Open-hearted, open-minded. And if you think you're seeing it, you are. If you think you're hearing it, you are. And that's all part of being open-hearted and open-minded.
I totally agree. And it took me a while to get there. So totally agree with that advice. Brian.
Yeah, I would say it's a good message, Helen, being open-minded and just it's okay. It's okay if it does happen. Like, it's nothing crazy. It's part of it. And you can ask for it. You can do it in a controlled way. It doesn't have to be like sprung upon you. You can you can have a prayer to your loved ones to have them nicely show to you, that they're around and they're thinking about it. Me personally, like I said, I like to see cardinals. Cardinals is a well-known thing. When you see a cardinal, usually I think of my loved ones, whoever I'm thinking about. So that could be a first down payment, is when you see a cardinal, think of your loved one. And that could be the way it kind of starts from there.
Yeah. And my advice to everyone is don't be as thick-headed as I was. Those signs, believe them when they're there. Try to quiet your mind so that you can connect to them. And like you said, Brian, don't be afraid to ask for guidance, ask for signs, ask for it, and quiet your mind enough so that you're actually listening and that you can hear it. And when you hear it, believe it. So, guys, thank you so much. Brian, thanks for joining us again. And Helen as well. Great always to have you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
And thank you all for listening to our Grow Through Greed podcast. If you liked what you heard today, please subscribe so you can stay in touch. Hit the like button. And until next time, my growth warriors, keep growing.